brave fundraiser, brave fundraising leader. I don't know where in the world you are, but you are very welcome to the Breakfast Club for Fundraising Leaders by Brightspot. So thank you so much for tuning in. We have got quite a lot of people who've registered, so it always takes us at least a couple of minutes to get everybody in. So please bear with me. But thank you for being here on time. As we always do, it's just lovely to get a bit of solidarity by tuning into who else is out there. So please, hi, Izzy from Calm. Lovely to see you. Just like Izzy and Leanne have done. If you would like to just take 30 seconds and say hello in the chat and say also where you're logging in from, it just gives us that sense of connection. And it's amazing how often people see other people in doing a similar role to them, or see old friends they haven't seen for ages in the chat. It's just a nice way of connecting. So while you're waiting for us to get started, please say hello in the chat. Oh my goodness, it's coming thick and fast now and I can't quite keep up. So hi Daniela, and hello Katie Collier. Oh my goodness, great to see you. Carolyn, long time no speak. Oh my goodness, it's gone a bit nuts. Hi, Hayley Woolbank. Lovely to see you as ever. And on it goes. So I'm going to give it 30 more seconds before we get going properly. If you make sure you've got yourself a beverage, whatever you need, pen and notepad, and we're going to get started in a moment. Okay, so we're off and running. Formally this time, it's my enormous pleasure to welcome you to the Breakfast Club for Fundraising Leaders. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever the time zone is for you. Thank you so much for making time to be here. I know it's not always easy, but you've done it. Goodness me, 10, 11 years ago, we did the first one of these in person in London, and there were 32 people there. And now I think we had about 700 and something register. And we got more than a couple of hundred so far. I know not all 700 people are going to be able to show up live, but many of the other ones will see it on recording. So whether you're tuning in live or you're seeing this recording, thank you so much for making time to be here, to keep learning, to connect with others and be in solidarity with other fundraisers and fundraising leaders. It makes such a difference to each other to come to these kinds of things. So thank you. And also thank you so much. Some of you are so wonderful at generously sharing on LinkedIn about Breakfast Club. And if it helps you, that it always just increases the chances that other fundraisers can make use of these free resources that Ben and I put out for you. So thank you if you take a moment to do that during or directly after the show. Okay, lovely to see so many familiar names there and some old friends. Some of whom have been coming for years, and also several names there I've never met before. So if you don't know me, my name's Rob. I've spent whatever it is, 25 years in fundraising, and 20 of those as a trainer, finding tips and tricks to help people raise more money through Brightspot, my company. We do lots of different things, but one of my favorite things to do is 4 times a year, Breakfast Club. And in this, I'm trying to give you just a burst of some examples and techniques that you could use in your own job, fundraising or leadership. And also some of them you might want to go and share with your team, an extra resource there that might just help you with the difficult challenges of being a fundraising leader, trying to keep standards high and make progress. Maybe sharing some of these things will help your team as well. Top tips to get the most out of it. Ben and I will do our utmost to put on a good show and keep it interesting, useful, occasionally even entertaining. But if your outcome is to have it really be genuinely useful and help you in your job, then tip 1 is capture your ideas. Not everything I say, but if you get a good idea, write it down. Secondly, plan to discuss it with a colleague or a teammate, or even just reflect on it yourself. It's not the idea that will raise more money, it's what you do with it, and that's unlikely to happen unless you do that extra step. Thirdly, what changes the world for the better is not hope, it's not intentions, it's decisions. So if today you hear something that at some level you feel, if I did that, it would really help, or there's a strong chance it would help, make a decision today, and that makes all the difference. A few months ago, my colleague said, Rob, I looked it up. It's 10 years now since you published your book. Are you doing anything to celebrate the anniversary? And I said, nope. Anyway, thank you, Ben. But I was persuaded to make a bit of a fuss. So the bit of a fuss I'm making about my 10-year anniversary of my book, The Fundraiser Who Wanted More, is today's Breakfast Club is inspired by some ideas in the book. There are lots of other ideas in the book, but two key themes in the book Ben and I are going to talk about. But in the book, if you don't know it, it's lots of techniques to help you increase the chances that when you talk about your cause or write about your cause to a supporter, they'll get it, they'll feel inspired about the difference they can make. So there's lots of things. Interestingly, a few of those are difficult. Almost all of them, if you break them down, are actually really easy to do. But here's the challenge with easy to do. They're also easy not to do. So I realized after I'd written the book that the first idea in the book needed to be make a decision about how good a fundraiser you want to be. And that's what Claire in the book does. So in fundraising, as in life, all great progress starts with a decision. And I suggest your outcomes from this Breakfast Club will start with a decision about, whatever good ideas you have today, decide to follow through on them. One of my favorite examples is that we did a live in-person Breakfast Club a few years ago about thankathons, and Alice Barley was the leader of fundraising in a small charity called Chances for Childhood. And she told me later, she decided, I'm going to go and talk to my chief exec about that, this thankathon, thanking event thing. She did that, got permission, made it happen. It was a wonderful event. They repeated it several times, and all kinds of genuinely valuable money outcomes were achieved because of that decision she made at Breakfast Club. So I invite you to make decisions today, if and when it feels right for you. If you've got questions for me or Ben, we can't promise we can handle all of them, but we'll do our best. And please start with the word question in the start of the chat if you've got questions. We'll do our best to cover as many of those as we can. So what's the plan? A quick welcome to Breakfast Club. I've done most of that. In a moment, I'm going to talk about the progress principle. Then Ben is going to talk about firepower, which is a different idea in the book. And then we're going to get you away finished by 5 to 10. Probably this is the most important idea of the entire hour. So please hear me on this. Years ago, I got various good advice from various people that would have helped my fundraising. And I'm sorry to say I didn't act on most of it. And I realized that the very few bits of advice I did act on initially that made fundraising a bit easier were when I had a good reason to, because I believed it would work, rather than someone just, oh, go on, try that. So that's why ever since my method, my bright spot method, has always been to look out for examples of successful fundraising, like a very successful thankathon is what I shared, which helped Alice. And then that's what helped to believe it was worth following through on. So that's the reason why I do it. The challenge is, if by the end of my presentation I've shared at least 3 or 4 of those, and then in Ben's presentation he shares at least 5 or 6 of those, so people have raised more money and do these cool things. If you've had a bad week or a bad month or a bad year, I totally get why it might feel a bit overwhelming if it appears like everyone else is rolling in money and doing these brave, creative things. Please look after yourself and receive this presentation and these examples in the spirit with which they're intended, which is we're not trying to show off or make you feel bad. We're just trying to prove to you that we've found these techniques have worked for other people, and therefore we believe they're worth trying for you. So we do our best to help you, not give you an extra reason to feel bad, because goodness knows there can be enough of those many of our heads. If you like this stuff, you don't need to show up live. I've done lots of them 4 times a year for years. For at least the last 3 or 4 years, we've been putting them on our YouTube. We've got lovely feedback about the one I did last time. In fact, someone just yesterday was telling me how much the session I did last time about techniques for bringing your numbers to life. So they're not dull stats, but they're genuinely inspiring, moving concepts or even stories. If you are regular, you might remember 6 months ago, Ben did a brilliant session about picking up the phone and how to increase your confidence to do that. We got lovely feedback from that one straight after. Lots of people were feeding back they were doing that. The brilliant Jumar Johnson, before that, talked about how her superpower as a leader is carving out thinking time every single day. And that saves her in the long run loads of time and makes her more confident and effective. And Mel and Esther from Leeds Hospitals Charity, about a year ago, year and a half ago, maybe, shared some really interesting resources, especially stewardship resources and newsletters and things about how they've improved and created wonderful relationships with their individual donors. So there's tons of stuff there. Check it out on Bright Spot's YouTube. And maybe even top tip from my point of view, because that for the YouTube, often you've got to carve out time to sit and watch. My favorite thing, if you don't know it already, and I know there's people out there who are regularly listening because you give me this lovely feedback. My top tip, probably, if you like my approach to teaching and making fundraising hopefully feel a bit easier, and Ben's approach, my top tip is to go to your phone, go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, and just type in fundraising bright spots, pink logo like that with my mug on it, although that back when I was beardy, and just get that on your phone. Listen to one. If you like it, just keep listening to one or two of those a week ongoingly. Oh my goodness. People tell me it just keeps kind of the optimistic and the positive uh, approach to finding techniques in fundraising and doing them bubbling away. Even if you never get onto one of my courses, that would be my suggestion that you do to help in this way with this free content. Of course, whole nother level. I mean, if you ever come to Breakfast Club or listen to the podcast and you find it helpful, and you say, well, that's helpful, a whole different level is if you could ever do a team training with us or an away day, or my favorite thing is our flagship courses, Major Gifts Mastery and Corporate Partnerships Mastery. We run them twice a year. The next ones start in mid-October. If you've been meaning for a while to get onto one of those, it is my best work. Uh, just because it makes such a difference to be learning these techniques together with other brave fundraisers doing the same things as you. But my main talk today is about this concept of progress and how on earth do you build momentum. So we've all got sort of that idea of how it can feel when you're in a new job, or you've got to start a new project, or you've got an existing type of fundraising that isn't working very well. You can feel stuck. It can feel overwhelming. And people say, make a successful appeal or make it all work. And I find if you just look at the top of the mountain, often that can be unhelpful. How do you, day on day, build a sense of momentum and therefore optimism? I'm going to share my favorite technique that I was given years ago by a Paralympic athlete, and I've been using ever since. In fact, it's the reason I managed to write a book. Little old me managed to write a book by using this system. This event here now only exists basically because I used this system for how to take the steps to make progress. So I'm going to share that with you. But first, I know this sounds really obvious, but years ago after university, I got a job teaching English. I was so lucky. I got to go to Japan and teach English. Amazing. But I discovered I really wanted to be able to speak to people and not in English. So I had a very strong motivation to learn Japanese. But obvious to say, oh my goodness, it was hard. Like it, this is kind of obvious in a way. You're probably aware of this, but uh, I was quite good at French at school, but French is a category one in level of difficulty for a native English speaker. Then you've got category two is harder, category three is harder. Japanese and Mandarin and a couple of other languages are generally considered level four difficulty of how long it takes because they're so different from English. And even though I had a high motivation, really good reason I wanted to get good at Japanese, oh my goodness, some days trying to study was took so much willpower. It felt like drudgery. I felt like it was hard. I wasn't making especially with the writing the characters and reading the characters. Anyway, now all of that's kind of obvious in a way, but how do you figure this? My daughter is 13 years old. 4.5 months ago, she got a good idea. Said, "Daddy, I think I want to learn Japanese." I don't know where she got the idea from, but that's not important. So she's not doing an exam in it. She's not doing a GCSE in it. As far as I know, we're not going to Japan anytime soon. She just decided to do this thing. Now, how do you think that's gone? Given how hard it is and how difficult can be for any of us, adults or children, to motivate yourself to keep a study habit. How do you think it's gone? Well, I can tell you, I'm totally astonished to this day that she's done some Japanese study every single day, not missed a day for 4.5 months, more than 4.5 months, nearly 4 months. And not only this, she doesn't do it reluctantly, and I have to nag her to do her homework. She's so excited to do it. She's so pleased with herself when she has done this hard thing. It's been really good for her I guess, her confidence to know she's mastering not just an easy thing, but a difficult thing, and that she's showing up with discipline. Um, uh, she just loves this step by step, steady progress, not an hour a day, sometimes just a few minutes a day. But in conclusion, progress feels great if you can get yourself in the momentum. How's she done it? I don't know. If probably there's some of you out there, maybe let me know in the chat. But how she's done it is this thing called Duolingo. By the way, I'm not paid to do an advert for Duolingo. I just think it's an extraordinary way this app is designed to make use of the human instinct to want to keep taking steady steps forward, and crucially to help you feel good and celebrate the steady steps forward on the journey, as opposed to only being pleased with yourself when you're fluent, or only being pleased with yourself when you hit your fundraising target. It is possible and natural for the human condition to enjoy steady progress, not just be happy at the top of the mountain, so to speak. And in fact, I don't know if you know someone who's so has a hobby they so enjoy, and they become so obsessed with it that they end up persuading you to do this same thing, this thing you thought you wouldn't like to do and you said you never would. Well, she wore me down 3 weeks ago. My daughter said, "Daddy, you must do it. I promise you'll be pleased with yourself." So grudgingly, I really didn't think it would work. 3 weeks ago, I said, "All right, I'll try it." And I started learning Italian for the first time. And here's my streak. I haven't done 144 days in a row, but I've done 21 days in a row. And now I am really enjoying the progress, and I fully intend to. I'd be astonished if I don't do it today and tomorrow and every day next week. So the bug of momentum of progress is working, partly because of the design of Duolingo, but partly, again, because it's the human nature to enjoy moving forward. Again, Couch to 5K is so successful at helping people take exercise compared to lots of other programs, which cause you to broadly feel bad if you haven't run 3 miles on the first day. So, in the context of my job, I'm so blessed because I've been teaching fundraisers for many years, and through my programs, and people feedback if they've listened to the podcast, or after Ben or Linda's training days, we hear about the progress they're making. So there's loads of things I could tell you, but I've noticed that if you design things right, absolutely, fundraisers can feel this joy of taking steps forward and enjoying their job, even if the appeal isn't finished and successful yet. There's a wonderful fundraiser called Phoebe from RSPCA, and she contacted me 2 or 3 years ago to say she'd listened to every single one of the first 100 episodes of Fundraising Bright Spots podcast, which made me very happy. But the main reason she was getting in touch is she said, "And I've got all these examples of how it's helped me raise more money." And I said, "Well, amazing, well done." And I say on this podcast on episode 104, when I interviewed her, "How have you done it?" She said, "Basically, every time I listen, I challenge myself not to have to change the world, not change every problem at my charity, but just to find one thing, one idea from that half hour, and dare myself to potentially implement something if I can. Not every time have I managed it, but many times I have. And that's what's led to this, the extra 250,000 in gift aid money saved and all the rest of it." So there's that example. There's a wonderful fundraiser called Magda at Cool Earth charity. She she had applied to the Jingle Jam event. Some of you know about this wonderful gaming fundraising event. She'd applied to be one of the chosen charities for 2022 and not been successful. And for 2023, she tried again and was not successful. And in 2023, she came on our corporate partnerships mastery course. And again, all through the program, she was just taking small things and getting a little bit better. This kind of content, these kinds of stories, write them up a little bit better. This approach to conversations with supporters, a little bit. This approach to writing. Anyway, long story short, she applied for the third time. Third time, not lucky, but earned. They became one of the chosen charities of Jingle Jam. And it was hard work, but in 2024, Magda told me they raised, I think it was around £280,000, which for a relatively small environmental charity, this was an amazing result. And again, Magda said to me, the weird thing was, Rob, it was progress step by step. But the weird thing was, after that, we improved that application. I just knew it was better. And almost, strange to say, it didn't even matter in a way whether we were successful or not. I just was feeling great about how much better it was, and maybe the luck will be with us or maybe it won't. So again, to me, that's the human condition relishes progress, even if you haven't yet won the shiny prize. But well done, she won the shiny prize. Right, that's about progress. What's the best way to get it? My favorite and most proven technique is this, and it comes from Karen Dark. You may not be aware of Karen, but if you follow Paralympic sport, you definitely do know Karen Dark. She's a superstar. So I read this book and it inspired me years ago. The gist of the first chapter is she was climbing um, near Aberdeen in Scotland, and she had an accident, and she woke up. Next thing she knew, she woke up in a hospital bed, and she wasn't able to move below the neck. And the rest of the book is how she went from this crisis to gradually taking steps to have a new and different life and rewarding life. Um, and oh my goodness, gradually she got a bit more feeling and sensation and movement. And she's done these extraordinary things. She hand cycled the length of Japan. She winched herself up one of the tallest mountains in North America, El Capitan, using only her upper body strength. She's in the was for years in the British Paralympic team. She got when I interviewed her, she had won silver medals. She went on to win gold on the track at the Rio Paralympics. So I read the book and thought, how do you do these things? They seem impossible to me. Anyway, um, she was kind enough to let me interview her, and this was long before I had a podcast. So I just talked to her and wrote all the information down. But something about how she does it really resonated, and like I say, I've been using it ever since. All various things I've been able to do, fortunate to do. Basically, I did them using this process. So here we go. I said, how do you achieve what seems impossible to us? She said, well, usually the first step is I'm chatting to my friends, and one of us says, hey, wouldn't it be amazing? We're here now, but wouldn't it be amazing if you could get into a wheelchair one day and actually go across the room? Or wouldn't it be amazing if you could do a 10K in your wheelchair? Or wouldn't it be amazing if you could do the London Marathon? Or wouldn't it be amazing if I could winch myself up that mountain? So it always starts with a wouldn't it be amazing? Even though sort of, really? Who are you kidding from here? But she said it happens so often, and crucially, they allow themselves to dream and get excited by it, so they feel the pull of how amazing it is in spite of the current circumstances. And she said they do it so often that she and her friends call these wibbers. WIBA. Wouldn't it be amazing? Wibber. I said, is that it? Because I struggled with that. She said, okay, there's basically three things. Step one, I decide on a wibber that could excite me. And it's a different one depending on where you are in your athletic career or where you are in your fundraising job. It always changes, but find one that genuinely excites you. If only that could ever happen, if a magic wand could be waved and that could happen, genuinely, would it be amazing? Decide on one. Okay, I said, what next? She said, of all the things, you're talking to me like I'm a superhero. I'm not. I'm honestly just a very human person with similar challenges and frailties to everybody else. But if there's one superpower I think that makes me a tiny bit different to other people that I've practiced, is at this point, most people can't handle the tension between the desire and the practicalities. Who are you kidding? It's just like I'm lying in a hospital bed. I can't move more than my hand. Uh, It would be amazing, but it's too much pain compared to where I am at now. So she says, I my key thing is I allow myself and I discipline myself. If I'm genuinely excited, I write it down now, even if and accepting the fact that it might feel impossible right now. Okay. Um, I said, what next? Is that it? She said, then all you got to do is each day simply ask yourself, is there something I could do today which moves me even just a millimeter closer to that amazing thing? And it might take 3 years, but a millimeter. And she said in the early days, literally, that's what it was. I would spend my thing each day was spending 10 minutes trying to move my finger a millimeter. And most days try and do at least one of those. She says that's where and the magic is. You start to get a bit of momentum, just like if you're doing Duolingo or Couch to 5K. Um, so I think subliminally that model informed my approach to writing the book because lots of the techniques in the book, like I say, are easy to do, but easy not to get round to doing. So that's why the first bit of the book, I say, decide. So the fundraiser in the book decides, I want to be a really happy, successful fundraiser. That's what I want. And I'm not there now, but I want it. Um, uh, Interestingly, some of you know of the wonderful Liz Tate. She really is one of my heroes in fundraising. I've learned a great deal from her over the years about fundraising, but also especially about leadership. Um, on one occasion, I interviewed her not about leadership, but about her successful career. Um, because we were chatting one day over coffee, and it turned out it seemed not to be a coincidence that she seemed to have every time I spoke to her, she was enjoying her job. And it was kind of challenging but also rewarding. Anyway, in this podcast episode I did a couple of years ago, 2 3 years ago, I said, could you explain how you do it? And she said, sure. This basically was a process she was taught when she was at the British Red Cross. I think it was the Red Cross, one of her first jobs. And what in this development program, leadership development program they had, they would our step one, go and if you want a happy career, go and find job ads that at some point you would like to be able to apply for and be confident you might be able to get. And she, because lots of people don't know what direction to go, and she looked at various job ads and she found two or three that were really similar. On all of them pulled her, so there was a pattern that she wanted that. But then normally, she's ahead of many of us because now she's noticed a pattern, so she's clearer on what she wants. But then normally many of us think, oh, who are you kidding? I'm miles off. Crucially, step two, work out the gaps in the job descriptions of skills you need and experience you need in order to do that job well or to apply that job. Work out the gaps. Crucially, get a buddy or a mentor who can help you think through how you might fill those gaps and also encourage you. What could you do to close the gap? And then, similar to the advice from Karen Dark, each week try and just do something, even if it's just buy a book or read a chapter of that book or have one conversation with someone about this fun leadership skill you don't yet have. um, Liz Tate says, yes, that is hard. Some weeks I missed it, but over time, I ended up doing enough things to start pulling forward to move away from the inertia and get the momentum. Um, so I found, although I don't believe Liz Tate had conversations with Karen Dark, I found her process uncannily similar to the Wimber process from Karen. The only addition there is the social proof that Liz specifically mentions of having a quote accountability partner you check in with you once a month or whatever. But otherwise, the steps is exactly, I think, the same as Karen's process. So I've got one more main thing to share, which is there's a fundraiser called Debbie who is brilliant and going great guns, and she came on our Major Gifts Mastery program about a year and a half ago or so. And she'd come from the commercial sector. She was pretty new to fundraising, within that year or so. She joined Major Gift Mastery, um, and oh my goodness, like Magda, she just soaked up the techniques, and not all of them necessarily worked first time, but she just was up for trying things and also putting her spin in the context of her personality or her charity or her cause on the techniques I was sharing in Major Gift Mastery. And she was sharing back with the group, like we do, like these wins, some big, but also lots of small wins of progress. Um, uh, so well done, Debbie. But I kept in touch with her a bit since, to the extent that I managed to talk to her this week and had a really lovely chat. And oh my goodness, she's doing wonderful things, and lots of good money is flowing in through high value fundraising for her wildlife charity. Um, Too many for me to explain now, but there's one particular story I thought really resonated was I mean the summary is of a donor who had given at a low level, I think it was £5,000 to this cause, but sort of it was no one had been in touch for a while, and I think the person had a very young child, and it was thought maybe we shouldn't talk to them at the moment. Anyway, Pauline, sorry, Debbie ended up picking up the phone and just suggesting we meet in the park for a coffee in the park. Long story short, that led to another meeting and another meeting, and several donations basically have flowed. And I don't know the exact numbers, but several donations, and the total now is high six-figure donations that I really don't think would be happening if it weren't for that first move of picking up the phone to get a chat, not to ask for money, but just to check in and enjoy a coffee in the park and listen to each other and talk about our cause. So you track it back to that. So interestingly, I'm always interested what caused that thing to happen, because lots of us intend to get that chat and then we talk ourselves out of it and it never happens. So one of the favorite techniques I've ever learned and share on comes from the brilliant Pauline. Pauline Broomhead. A few of you out there probably even know Pauline from when you knew of her or even worked with her in at the NSPCC. I started my career at that children's charity, and one of the great heroes of how the Full Stop campaign succeeded. There's lots of reasons why it raised a lot of money and protected a lot of children, but one of the great, to me, heroes that helped a lot of Major Gift success, not the only person, but a lot, was called Pauline. And she was kind of legendary at the time in our organization. So when I became the training manager for Fundraiser at NSBCC, I was determined to get some time with Pauline and ask her, how do you do it? This amazing momentum and these gifts coming in. And she sat with me for over an hour and a half. And this, again, before my podcast, I wish I'd recorded it, but I just took half a notebook full of notes. Out of all those notes, lots were useful, but this one has helped me ever since. I said, Pauline, what's it all down to? She said, well, relationships. Be a relationship fundraiser, not a money chasing fundraiser. Yeah, I get that philosophically, but how? Well, there's a discipline to being a great relationship fundraiser. How? Well, basically, it's not easy because in your organization, lots of people are demanding your time. But how I managed to actually keep moving forward and deepening, adding value to these relationships with people who care about my cause is what I was taught by my mentor years ago. And what they said was each morning, ask yourself, what are three things, three moves, which would deepen or improve relationships with people who care about our cause? It might be just send that thank you letter, 4 minutes. It might be 10 minutes thinking time about this really important donor. It might be, heaven forbid, pick up the phone or do some other thing that manages to get a conversation, an actual conversation, to check in with someone who cares and thank them again, or invite them to the event. It could be any of those three, but crucially, so that's the first thing. It's obvious in a way. I know the shouting at the screen is obvious, Rob. Pauline's real, like the reason she was a superstar, in my opinion, or one of the reasons, is step two. She said, now do those three things before you do anything else today. Before you fill in the spreadsheet for someone or other, before you do this, that, and the other, go to that, do those three before you do it. Of course, in practice, that's really hard. And sometimes, even for Pauline, it's not possible, but have the aspiration. So, as Debbie often does, Debbie took that idea, and the reason she was making so much progress by the end of the 6 months in Major Gifts Mastery is she was just doing these like up to 15 moves per week to deepen relationships with people who care about protecting the wildlife of the UK and the environment of the UK. If you add all that value to deepen relationships, get those extra chats, sooner or later, well, I promise you, some people are going to want to give because it's enjoyable to give to solve the problems we care about. Um, Again, but I want to know, Debbie, how do you do it? Do you know how she does it? She said, ever since you mentioned that Pauline story on the program, this is what my calendar looks like. This is September this week's calendar. But can you see in pink there? Debbie's calendar says it nudges her, just like Duolingo does. Those of you who know Duolingo, it nudges her to ask herself the question: have you done your 3 things yet before you get onto other stuff? Now, Debbie's only human. I'm sure sometimes maybe she doesn't quite manage it, but can you see how she gets the momentum of doing that little thank you note and getting it out early rather than intend to do it at 10 to 5 and then not quite get it done? So I offer that to you again because there's a parallel to kind of the nudging small things and having things visible, like apps like Couch to 5K and Duolingo do, that help you keep taking the 2 millimeter steps forward. So to sum up this talk, decide on what would be amazing for you, not for anyone else, but wouldn't it be amazing if we got that gift in, or that event doubled in size, or whatever might be? Then write it down and be okay the fact that it feels genuinely impossible. It's okay. That's for other people too. And then go to work each day. What small thing could I do? Occasionally, you do a big thing as well. Um, okay, so last couple of things to share. I hope that was helpful. I hope you can apply it to one Wibber today. Do let me know how you get on with it. I love the feedback, even from these free things we put on, just letting me know if these things are moving you. Share on LinkedIn if at some level it's helped you. Some people have been asking me about details about the next Corporate Partnerships Mastery, Major Gifts Mastery. These are our long-running flagship event. It's my best work because for 6 whole months, you get these full-day masterclasses with me spaced out over time, and then you try some stuff and you come back and talk about how you're getting on. You get individual coaching, you get loads of other content and live sessions to opt into if you want to through the membership. Starts in October. If you're a corporate or major gift fundraiser, do check it out. It just works. The 1 year version platinum is 3295. The 6 month one, which some people in this breakfast club now have done. There's a few platinums. The more common one is 6 months, 2395. There is, for just a tiny bit longer, a saving of £400, so it comes down to 1995. And all it takes is one extra major gift or corporate partnership of 5, 10, 20,000 pounds, which is very doable and common. And all of the investment is dwarfed in terms of ROI. But if you're at all curious and you sense this could work for you, then do get in touch today. We'll put a form in the chat for you to either request a chat with me or my colleague, and we'll talk you through it, answer any questions. If it's not for you, it's not for you, but at least find out. But if you contact us today, tomorrow, in advance of Wednesday, you qualify for the saving, even if it might take you another week or two to actually get the budget signed off. So also, equally though, maybe that's not for you, but maybe a team training with Ben or my colleague Linda would be for you. Again, just fill in the chat. We'll talk it through. At least maybe plan for the future so you know how these things work. Rather than me give you an explanation of the content and how it all fits together and the strategies, all I would say is, if you've found these breakfast clubs or my podcast or my blogs helpful, because the techniques I teach, that's down here, it's up here, the level of helpfulness when you can spend 6 whole months in this environment, positive, can-do, practical, encouraging environment with the coaching, and crucially doing it as part of a cohort, other people doing it with you. It's just it ends doing brave, hard things feels ever easier, so people take action and get more confident, and usually they raise quite a lot more money as well. So anyway, my guarantee is if you're not sort of understanding that by the end of day one because you feel it's already working, let me know. I'll give you all your money back. I'll donate £500 to your charity. You can walk away. Whatever happens, you'll be up on the deal. It's never happened, but then it wouldn't. For 11 years, the techniques plus the group effect, it does just work. Anyway, if that reduces the risk for your finance director, uh, tell them that. Anyway, I need to get on to the next session because we need to get you finished by 5 to 10. And I'm going to just take away my slides. Goodness, I'm fortunate in many ways, but one of the great blessings of my life is years ago, I met a brilliant human being and fundraiser called Ben Swart, and we've got on very well ever since, and we've worked together for many years now. You might know him from my podcast. He often is the co-host or the guest on that. You might know him from a team day. I know lots of you have done team days with him or away days or department days. You might know him as the co-trainer on Corporate Partnerships Mastery. If you don't know him, I think you're going to enjoy not only his warm energy because he cares so much, but also these techniques he's about to share with you. So I asked Ben if there was one chapter, one topic from my book, which I wrote 10 years ago, that could be a theme for a presentation to help you just in 20 minutes now. He chose the chapter I called Firepower, which I know is not the language all of you would necessarily use, but I chose to call it Firepower, and Ben's kindly prepared a presentation. He's going to talk through some ideas linked to that chapter or inspired by that chapter. Thank you, Ben. Over to you.
Thanks very much, Rob. Hello, everybody. For those of you following the story on LinkedIn, my voice is back. Hurrah! I've had a very croaky voice, but I'm pleased to say it's back for these next 19 minutes. Do you know, Rob, to follow on from your session, one of my main aims from this is I've noticed after a breakfast club, and I can see it now metaphorically, there's 300 plus people there at their desks watching this on their screen. Some of you are looking at your phone. Some of you got back from drop off. You heard Rob speak, and I think you're feeling a little bit of firepower right now. I think right now, if I asked you to close your laptop, get your pad out, and think of something you want to do, I think you're a little bit more energized than you would have been before you joined the Breakfast Club. If that's true, by all means, write that in the chat. I think that's what I've noticed. Now, the interesting thing for me is I know that to be true because I've worked with Rob and we've obsessed about these things for years. How can we help someone immediately after they've heard us want to do something differently? That's what we're here for. That's what I'm here for the next 18 minutes. But this particular topic is, do you know what? When I'm not always there for you, when Rob isn't always here to be able to give you energy and ideas and inspiration, what are some of the things that you can do that will still give you that firepower so that when your reminder pops up in 3 months' time on a cold, wet day at 9 o'clock in the morning to make those 3 donor moves, you're not tired and like actually you've got that energy? This session is to explore that a little bit. And in particular, Rob's right. I am going to reference and look at a particular chapter in his book, but the best way to do that is to start, as ever, with a sort of story. And just so you know, now I'm not planning on it being wildly emotive today, but I've noticed the nature of the sort of things I'm about to talk to you about. So just bear with me. There we go. Nature of the things I'm about to talk to you about. Sometimes that does affect us all in different ways. So please look after yourselves if any of today's content does affect you. But you know what I was thinking of with today's content was, and I'm just going to change this so that I can see you. There we go. A few months ago, I was doing a session and it was a big divisional away day. Maybe you can imagine it. Maybe you are in a tiny organization. You feel like there's only 6 other people working there. Maybe you're in one of those big branded charities and there's hundreds of people there. This was a day with over 150 people in one room. And it's about 3 o'clock when it's time for me to do my session. And it was a hot summer's day in this room without any air conditioning. Now, scientists call this moment the afternoon slump. when people are feeling least energetic and most exhausted, and in all honesty, least likely to put themselves forwards for things. I was doing a session diving into real examples and the power of them within our work. And in that session, I asked a room of 150 people, can you think of a time, a moment, an example, a moment that moved you most, where your work has created change and you're proud of it and you felt differently after hearing it? And I know that lots of people did think of that example. And then I asked, would anyone like to share it? Anyone want to share that example? Now, maybe you are a brave, bold fundraiser and you are likely to put your arm up in that room. But what I've noticed is, for many of us, when we're in a room with our most senior directors, 100 of our colleagues, it's hot, it's the end of the day, it takes a certain sort of bravery to put your arm up and share a particular story, especially when it's got to the end of the day. And in this moment, a few months ago, one fundraiser put their arm up. So everyone turned and looked at that fundraiser. And she said, my colleague Sarah has a good story. And she pointed to Sarah, who was sitting next to her, poor Sarah, and said, Sarah, you should share the story you shared with me earlier on. And Sarah, as you can imagine if you were that sort of fundraiser, Sarah went, oh gosh. And she was, to begin with, she was a bit like this. And Sarah, who's an outstanding fundraiser, Sarah said, oh gosh, well, what I shared with my colleague was I remember taking a donor on a project visit, and it was a hospital charity. And we were walking around a ward, a neonatal ward, and it was a major donor. And as we were walking around the ward, we turned a corner and there was a family, and they were just next to one of those sort of hospital curtains, and the clinician beckoned us over to come and talk to them. And we pulled back the curtain, and there in front of us was the family with their baby who had been born 3 or 4 months prematurely. And in an incubator was the baby, and outside the incubator, said Sally, and she started outside the incubator, she said, was a doctor and this machine, this robotic machine that was keeping her heart beating outside her body. Her heart was being kept alive outside her body. And like you just saw, she said, the donor couldn't believe what they were seeing. The clinician was excited because they said there's nearly nowhere in the world that has this tech apart from our charity here. And the family was so grateful. And Sarah, at this point, she said, anyway, the donor was so moved. I remember we said goodbye. I went back into the office and I turned around to our colleagues and I said, I love my job. And at this point, Sarah's arms are outstretched and she's screaming to a room of 150 people, I love my job. We're just the luckiest people in the world. And the thing that dawned on me, which I have known for many times, but I love it when I see it in the wild, the thing that dawned on me that minute was the way that Sarah's state had changed from, oh gosh, I'm not sure I really want to share this example, to this awesome, overpowering person. And it wasn't just that she'd inspired us, all 100 people in the room, but and the donor itself, but you saw in her, in that instant, something was ignited. There was a firepower in Sarah. And I thought about that because I've noticed when I do a story day, when we do an influencing day, when Rob did his masterclass, do you know the same is true? The more we start sharing these sorts of stories and examples, the more it changes something in us as well as inspiring our donors. And it made me think of Rob's book, The Fundraiser Who Wanted More. And in particular, I went home, grabbed it, flicked through, and there it is. The third law. The third law of outstanding, persuasive, certain fundraisers. The law of firepower. The fundraiser who collects, practices, knows, finds, gets in contact with more stories will find it easier to influence in a conversation. And I've noticed influence themselves too. Now, just to be clear, I am aware some of you are saying, Ben, I was on a breakfast club a year ago, and I'm sure you said this already. This isn't the first time you've talked to me about storytelling. You've done it on that podcast and that podcast. Your colleague Jamal did it on that podcast. I've heard you do opening plenaries on it, closing plenaries on it. Max has talked about it. Ben, I've gone to conferences and they've told me about storytelling. We know the power of storytelling. But what I'm most interested in is it's one thing to know that storytelling is powerful. It's a whole other thing. Remember Rob's section. It's a whole other thing to make the choice to decide to do something that means you're more likely to find them, use them, and then see that impact on your donors. So, what I thought I'd do over the next few months after hearing that and thinking about Rob's book was, can I think through people who've either been on my training, been on the mastery courses, had a day with us, heard us talk at a plenary, read the book, who've actually done what Rob talked about, made a decision and said, I'm going to give this a go and see if it affects them. And one person I thought of in particular was this outstanding fundraiser who put the rule of firepower into practice called Gemma Saunders Brennan. Maybe you know Gemma, maybe she's on the call. She's in a different time zone. So perhaps she's listening back to the recording. Hello, Gemma. I'm really grateful to Gemma because I picked up the phone because I remember coaching Gemma about 4 years ago on our mastery course. She worked at the time for Plan International. There she is. Now she is an outstanding consultant of her own, Banana Leaf Fundraising. And immediately when you speak to Gemma, she does just seem to have more real examples at her fingertips. And I don't just mean long signed off case studies. I mean tiny little anecdotes or moments people said thank you, or what it was like when a project, when someone in the field talked to her. She's got more of these at her disposal. And she told me when I talked to her about how she's been using them, what she's done since reading the book. She said, I've lost count of the number of times I use them, but I can think of there's a particular story that really brought home to me. It summed up our work. She said, Plan International, it's a wonderful charity, but the challenge is often with international organisations and possibly yours too, our work can be and feel complex. Sometimes most of our funding and conversations are with government or international INGO organisations, and we talk in a certain language that isn't always the most moving. So she said, there was one particular example that felt like it broke that curse of knowledge. It shattered that. And she said, I used it when I met a particular company who had never given to us before. It was my first meeting with them. And they asked us, what do you do in a humanitarian setting? That was the question. Humanitarian crisis setting. What do you do? And she said, this story really brought to life the difference of my charity. She said, one of the things that most people might not realize, she said, I was thinking in particular of a family as they left Ukraine after Russia invaded Ukraine, is this family had to leave immediately. When your village is being bombed, you don't have time to calmly think what you should do. You just leave to save your life and your children's lives. And there was a mum there with her daughter, and they left immediately. Um, and from the moment that you leave your home, she said, nearly everything is decided for you. The safest path is told to you. The safest shelter is given to you. The food is given to you. You don't really have much choice, much agency. And I know there's lots of other challenges, but she said the lack of control and agency can have a massive impact on them. And she said, there's this one story I was told where in a particular part of Moldova, when families were going to the town centre to try and now enrol in school, she said it really summed up Plan International's impact in that area. Um, Rather than just hand out 500 black backpacks and tell them this is what it is and it's got stuff for you, she said, in fact, she sent me this email. She said, um, they didn't give them standard backpacks off of a back. We did a town hall event in Chisinau, Moldova. Children were invited to come and choose their new backpack for school with 6 different styles and 6 different colours. They then had a huge trestle table full of items for their backpacks and they could choose what went in them. One mum said to us, it was the first choice or ability to exercise her agency that her child had received since the first bombs fell. So Gemma told this story to me and I found it really moving. She said, I told it to this company. Anyway, 3 weeks later, she said, the company phoned, mentioned the story back to me as the thing that stuck out about their work. And they asked, Gemma, do you do any environmental work? Because they're the types of projects we're funding this year, and we've got funding before the year end. We want to give the money to you. So could you please apply in some way to this environmental fund? And Gemma said, it was quite tenuous, but we did have an environmental fund. And she said, I applied, I got a £50,000 partnership with this company and extra value too. But what I love about this was they never forgot the backpack story. Like for them, it meant that she got a donor more generous than they would have been before. Another example, Max. I love Max. I think you're on the show at the moment. Friend of the pod. He's come onto the corporate mastery course as well. I think it was about 8 years ago that Max was on the course. I remember coaching him. You work for the British Red Cross, another international organisation. Can be complex to describe their work. Can be complex in a big organisation to always feel your firepower. Max said that there's one of the things that helped his team to raise double the income of other teams just like his. Max was head of region for the North and the Midlands. His team of community fundraisers had to try and raise money from the local people who didn't always want to support a big organisation like that. After trying out a particular idea to help get more firepower, Max doubled the income of any other team near him. And when on the podcast, Max talks about this, episode 48, he talks about lots of ideas, but one of them he said that helped us most with our firepower. In our team, we made it a KPI. Can we volunteer at 3 or 4 more frontline service events, chances to help people during floods, distributing food, helping people with travel? Can we volunteer at 3 or 4 times more than most other people? Which meant that sometimes once a month they were out there volunteering. Now, Max says there's lots of things that help double their income, but that was one of the things that helped them most. And he said it gave them, like a bolt of lightning, firepower. But also, I think if it seems too good to be true, that this is that really the thing that influenced his team and others to be more likely to give? Like, I want you to picture the scene. If I am a local group, a Freemasons group, for instance, and I have 4 charities who are talking to me that day, and 3 of them are doing their best to talk about their cause, but they might be talking about it in a, more informative, top-line strategic way. And then one of them is Max, who that week was in Fishlake, South Yorkshire, helping to distribute packs to families whose houses had been devastated by flood. Do you think you'd be able to sense a difference in Max and his team, in their likelihood, by the way, to pick up the phone, or their likelihood to talk to you? I think you might be able to sense a difference. Like, if right now you're the sort of cause that says, Ben, we aren't an international aid organisation. We're not a charity that helps babies. For us, it's slightly different. I think of I appreciate it is trickier for you. I totally agree. And I think of the work I did with the wonderful charity Plant Life. Maybe you've heard of Plant Life. Many people know of them because of something called No Mo May. I was with Plant Life and they said to me, Ben, most of our job is measuring fungus on trees. That's what we do. Find your stories with us. Give us that firepower there. And we did it. I asked them a question about, well, has anyone ever told you that your work has made an impact on them? And that's when they told me about a particular farmer. Maybe you're aware of this. Maybe you know a farmer. This farmer was like sixth, seventh generation farmer, been through their family for years. And he said when he was growing up, he used to see dragonflies at breakfast. He used to have owls hooting like every night. He said, but for his children who are 4, 5, 6, they don't hear owls, they don't see dragonflies because of the way that he's been farming the land over the last 2 decades. The biodiversity has changed. There's fewer birds, there's fewer bees, there's fewer insects. The land is changing, and that is having a knock-on effect. Plant Life said within 2 years of working with this particular farmer, he said to them, when I go to bed now, I hear owls for the first time in 20 years. Like, my children are chasing dragonflies in the morning. Like, thank you, it's come back. There are a few other interesting stories that they shared, but what I liked about this was when one of their particular colleagues, Claire was her name, when she started sharing these stories, again, you notice their state and their determination change compared to when they were talking about the numbers or the statistics. I caught up with Pete, who was the head of high value at Plant Life, 2 years after we'd started working with them. And he said, Ben, before you were working with us, from partnerships, philanthropy trusts, we were raising about £500,000. He said 2 years later, I'm not sure if it was more firepower, if it was the more stories we changed, if it was the focus that we had, because we did a number of different things. Our average now, £1.5 million is how much we're raising. And if you're interested, like Rob says in the book, and like we find when we notice people who get extraordinary results, and like he just said, it's little things every day that there is a pattern that emerges. I was interested. What is the pattern that emerges that can help you be more likely to choose, more likely to decide that little thing you could do every day, every week, every month that will help you get more firepower that I think would also help you with some of the things Rob talked about and influencing your donors is three things that we noticed. Three steps to help you find your own firepower. One of them is a bit like Rob's earlier one, decisions, choices, saying, do you know what? I value finding, using, capturing more of these real examples. I'm going to do something today. How can I find them? I'll dive a bit deeper into that in a second. The second thing is locking them in. It's one thing to be in the place where stories are or to put yourself there. It's another thing to have actually captured them. And then finally, the bravery to use them. So let's go back. What did Gemma do? When I did speak to Gemma, she said, do you know, reading the book, going on the mastery course, it changed the way I valued story and real example, both in the way it made me feel and what I'd seen it do to donors. She said, um, if there was a chance to do a lunch and learn, if one of my colleagues was doing a 15-minute webinar or a turn up at lunchtime, I'd go there. You can see the quote on the screen. Like it changed that as a priority. Unless I was an hour or two away from deadline, I was in that room absorbing that information. And if you want to catch up with me after this another time, Gemma's got two, three, four, five other examples of things she's heard on that day that have helped her to get meetings, to get win pitches, to get gifts in. How much did she value story? She was looking through, she told me, a 40-page report on the work they'd done to help people from Ukraine. And she said, in all honesty, Ben, it was a bit tough. It was a long read. It was quite complex, written in a sort of jargony language. She said, on page 27 was this one picture. You can see it on the screen. I saw this one picture and it just sparked something in me. She values story. I think there's a story to this picture. So what did she do? She found the author of the report, sent them a note, didn't work, an email didn't work, tried again, and eventually managed to get a 20-minute chat in with the person who was head of programs for that particular project. And in that chat, she heard the story of the mum and the backpack in Ukraine. That story that she would then use to win a £50,000 partnership and to help her. But I like how hard she worked. The second thing, lock in. I think we overestimate, in fact, studies have shown, we overestimate our ability to remember stories. They're so powerful. You feel the emotion at the moment. You can understand the feeling you get, but you don't always remember the detail that brings it to life. On our course, we help you to figure out ways to do that. One of the most important one is locking them in. When I worked at the NSPCC, a wonderful charity, we did used to have people speak to us. Like in this room, I was in this room the other day, and there were some speakers telling us amazing stories. There were about 70 people in this room that I was in, as the speaker gave us breathtaking stories on the impact of their work. When I looked around in that room, everyone had a piece of paper in front of them. Everyone had a pen in front of them. I am interested, and you can put this in the chat if you'd like. How many people do you think in that room of 70 were writing down in their pad the stories and the examples as they were being shared from this person on stage? I can tell you I was there furiously scribbling. How many people do you think? What have we got? 0, 7, none of them, 5? Like we had 70 people there. I love, like you are smarter than most rooms. Let's get clear. 3 of them, 3 people out of 70 were writing these stories down. Now, I think you're different to most people because you're on this webinar. I think you're the sort of person who might be more likely to capture it. But do just pause and ask yourself, am I the sort of person that does what Gemma does? Buy her new business team a book, get her pad out and capture that story immediately. Write it down. Get those bits, the bits that move you, capture them in front of you. And then you can go a step further. One thing we preach is to give people, I've got it here, a hardback book. If you come on our mastery programs or on our training, you get a hardback Bright Spot book. This is not for your team meeting notes. This is for you to write your story in it. In fact, writing your story in this book makes it so much more likely that when the time comes, when the moment happens, you are more likely to remember it. I did this session 2 weeks ago. I was testing out this content, and Imogen, on the call, I don't know if you're here today, Imogen, she proudly waved her hand. She's on our mastery. She is absolutely smashing it on Major Gift Mastery. She showed us her book. She opened it up. You can see the notes she's been taking, the stories she wrote down. She proudly shared it because she said tomorrow she has a meeting with a donor. The main reason she got the meeting, she said, is because she'd written a story down, chunked it up, and sent that one sentence version of the story in an email to this donor. 9 months they'd spent trying to get a coffee with them, a test drive as we call it. She sent this one sentence to him about the impact of their work. He replied, yes, I'd love a meeting. That meeting was the day after our session the other week. And the thing I loved the most was Imogene could not wait to meet the donor. Why? Because she has a pad of firepower that lets her know when she does meet him, she's going to find the things that make it more likely to inspire him. Um, the final idea, use it. What can you do once you've captured them to bravely use them, big or small? Rachel Catola, podcast episode 100. Do you know, for her, it's the act of writing more handwritten cards. When she hears a powerful story, a real example, a quote where someone says thank you, she writes it into a card, she sends it off to the donors that she'd like to just deepen a relationship with, like Rob was saying, that Pauline Broomhead does. On the podcast, she talks about a donor who used to give £50 a month, now gives at the time of podcast gave £1,000 a month. As of today, £2,000 a month. What's his feedback? It's your handwritten cards, Rachel. They connect me so much more to your work. Use them like Gemma did in her meeting to bravely share the story, made it more likely. Um, Here's the thing I love. There's like, if you want to make a decision after today, if there's something you'd most like to do, like Rob has said, it could be from the first session or from this. Here's some ideas. Number one, make a choice. Block some time in your organization right now. Who would you talk to try and connect yourself with the stories, the real examples? Where would you go? How would you change your team meeting? Like, is there somewhere you would visit? Is there a Sky documentary you might watch that might connect you? Is there a person who's closer to the impact? Lock it in. If you've got a hardback pad, make that your story pad, your rocket fuel pad. Like, capture them when you do hear them and use them. Max's other ideas, share them in team meetings, write more thank you cards, you send more WhatsApps, tell your supporters about them. The other decision you might make, honestly, if you haven't already, I can see some people who've bought the book. Buy the book, have a read of it. This is a direct quote from Gemma. For a good couple of years, that book was next to my desk and continually referred to until it became my way of working. Like, whatever it is that you choose to do, please let me know. Let me know how this has helped you. If you have any questions, any ideas, I am around. But for now, I hope that you've done something or can do something to ignite your firepower. Good luck with your fundraising. Let us know how you get on.
Oh my goodness. I'm out of breath just listening to you, Ben. Thank you so much for putting fire in my belly again. And I think I'm gonna get people away. I've just got a couple of slides here to guide things. So I can't see any questions in the chat apart from some people are asking about the mastery programs. Abby, thanks for your question. If you just fill in the form, we'll be able to send you the dates or let you know so in case the dates work for you for mastery programs. By the way, thank you to lots of lovely people, Hannah and Sam Caulfield and Julie and the rest of you who are saying about how the mastery programs are helping you or have helped you. But in terms of back to today's show, right now, even if you just got one idea, two ideas that you think, if I do that thing, the course of my future is going to be a tiny bit different. What are your one, two, or three ideas that you're going to follow up on? Decide now before you get sucked into your next meeting. I suggest if you don't already try it, one of them might be the Fundraising Bright Spots podcast. Just subscribe to that, try out one episode. I hope you'll find that the style of teaching is really similar to what Ben and I have just done. And if today's show worked, then just we've got so many good episodes here that can achieve the similar kind of thing as what Breakfast Club does. So try out Fundraising Bright Spots if you'd like to, maybe starting with one of the episodes I've already mentioned or Ben has mentioned. Oh my goodness. We're just about done. Thank you so much, as always, to what a wonderful, warm audience you are. Ben and I do our best to bring the content, but so much of what makes this club work when we did it in person and still when we do it virtually is the connection in terms of the generous sharing and jokes and so on in the club. So thank you to all of you, A, for showing up, and B, for those of you who are able to do these little posts in the chat. I really appreciate this connection it creates. If you enjoyed it, I will see you again in December. And oh, but my last request, if at any level this was helpful to you, my one request for a favor would be if you could just find a minute or two to just put some post on LinkedIn and hashtag Breakfast Club. It just increases the chances that people keep showing up, more people hear about it who could really value from the content, especially the free content Ben and I create, but may not be aware of it right now. So the more we share about this free stuff we do, the more it means we can just help some charities and fundraisers out there for whom this stuff might just give them a lift and make all the difference to their day or their week. So thank you. I know lots of you do it already, but I will always be grateful. I am always grateful when you are so kind and generous in doing the sharing. But I need to get away, help you get away. Um, uh, Thank you so much to Ben, as always, for all the effort you put into bringing these things to life. Thank you to all the bright, spotty people out there who kindly allowed us and encouraged us to share their examples and stories. And they are many. None of what I do would be possible without the generosity of fundraisers sharing what they've been up to. And most of all, thank you to you for, you could have been somewhere else. You could have been deep in a deadline or a project preparing for your next meeting, but you somehow found the hour to come to Breakfast Club. I really appreciate that you keep finding the time to keep learning, connecting, and helping each other. Have a wonderful day, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one for Breakfast Club in December. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.